A little girl asks Elon Musk if money buys happiness. His response brings everyone to tears. You won't believe what happened when a shy little girl stepped up to ask Elon Musk one of life's biggest questions: does money really buy happiness? What he said next left the entire room speechless. It all started at a tech conference in downtown Los Angeles. The room was packed with some of the brightest minds in the world: engineers, entrepreneurs, investors, all waiting to hear from one man, Elon Musk. He had just finished his keynote speech about the future of space travel and sustainable energy when something unexpected happened. As the Q&A session began, people lined up to ask their questions. Most were predictable. Questions about Tesla's next big project or how we'll survive on Mars. But then, a small girl, no older than 8, walked up to the microphone. Her hands trembled as she gripped the mic stand, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do you think money can buy happiness?" she asked. The crowd went silent. It wasn't the kind of question anyone expected, especially not from a child. For a moment, even Elon seemed caught off guard. You could see it in his eyes. He wasn't sure how to answer. This wasn't a question about rockets or robots. This was personal, and that's when things got interesting. Elon leaned back in his chair for a second, rubbing his chin like he was thinking hard. Then he said something that made everyone lean forward in their seats. "Well," he began, "when I was younger, I thought money could solve everything. But now, after building companies, losing friends along the way, and missing out on moments with my family, I realize it's more complicated than that." The little girl tilted her head, clearly curious. "What do you mean?" she asked softly. Elon took a deep breath before continuing. "Money can give you comfort, sure. It can buy you nice things, a house, a car, maybe even time to focus on your dreams, but it doesn't fix loneliness. It doesn't bring back people you've hurt or lost. And sometimes it makes life harder because people treat you differently." You could hear murmurs spreading through the audience. Some nodded, others looked confused, but no one spoke. Not yet. Then Elon paused again, staring at the girl like he wanted to say more. Finally, he added, "Happiness isn't something you can buy. It's something you feel when you connect with others, when you love and are loved in return." At that moment, the little girl smiled. She didn't say anything else. She just stepped away from the mic and returned to her seat. But what happened next shocked everyone. As soon as the girl sat down, an older man stood up. He looked wealthy, tailored suit, expensive watch, and he pointed directly at Elon. "That's easy for you to say," he shouted. "You're worth billions. What do you know about real struggles?" The room erupted into chatter. People turned to each other, whispering. Was this guy serious? Did he really think Elon hadn't faced challenges? But then another voice chimed in. A young woman near the front row raised her hand timidly. When Elon called on her, she said, "Actually, I think he's right. I work 3 jobs just to pay rent, and yeah, I'd love to have more money. But what keeps me going is my son. Seeing him laugh every morning, that's what makes me happy." More people started sharing their thoughts. One man talked about losing his business, but finding joy in reconnecting with his siblings. A teenager admitted she dreamed of fame and fortune but realized her happiest memories were camping trips with her parents. And all the while, Elon listened quietly, nodding occasionally. He didn't interrupt or try to steer the conversation. Instead, he let these strangers pour out their hearts in front of hundreds of people. Just when it seemed like the discussion was winding down, a woman in the back of the room stood up. She looked nervous, clutching a piece of paper in her hands. Her voice trembled as she began to speak. "I need to say something," she said, glancing at Elon, because this feels like the only chance I'll ever get." The room fell silent again. All eyes were on her now. "My name is Sarah," she continued. "And 6 years ago my husband worked for one of your companies. He killed himself because he couldn't handle the pressure anymore." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even Elon looked stunned, his face pale. No one had expected this turn. Sarah took a shaky breath before continuing. "He used to talk about how amazing it was to work for someone who dreamed so big. But then the deadlines got tighter, the expectations higher. He stopped sleeping. stopped smiling, and one day he just gave up. For a moment, no one spoke. The air felt heavy, like the weight of her words had crushed everyone in the room. Elon finally broke the silence. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice low and strained. "I didn't know." But Sarah wasn't finished. "That's the thing," she said, tears streaming down her face. "No one knows. You talk about changing the world, but sometimes I wonder if anyone stops to think about the cost to the people working behind the scenes, sacrificing everything to make those dreams come true." Her words hit hard. People shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some wiped away tears. Others stared at the floor, lost in thought. Then, unexpectedly, another person stood up. This time, it was a young engineer who worked for one of Elon's companies. "She's right," he admitted. "We push ourselves to the limit every single day. And yeah, it's exciting to be part of something groundbreaking, but there are nights when I lie awake wondering if it's worth it, wondering if I'll end up like her husband." The tension in the room was palpable. It felt like the entire event had shifted from a tech conference to a raw, emotional reckoning. Finally, Elon stood up. He walked over to the edge of the stage, closer to the audience. Thank you, he said quietly. "Thank you for telling me these things. I don't have all the answers, but I promise I'll do better. We'll do better." His voice cracked slightly on the last word. For the first time, the billionaire genius didn't seem invincible. He looked human. The room was eerily quiet after Elon's promise. Everyone seemed to be holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Then, a man in his 50s stood up. He wasn't dressed like the other tech executives or engineers. His clothes were worn, his hands calloused. "I've been listening to all of this," he said, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "And I want to say something too." He paused, glancing around the room as if gathering his thoughts. Then he looked straight at Elon. "I'm not rich. I never will be, but my daughter, she works for you. She designs software for one of your projects, and she talks about you like you're some kind of hero. Says you're changing the world." The man swallowed hard, his eyes glistening. "But here's the thing. When she comes home, she's exhausted. She barely has time for her kids, barely has time for me and her mom. And I need to know, is it worth it? Is whatever you're building worth losing our family over?" His words hung in the air, heavy and unanswerable. For a moment, no one moved. Even Elon seemed frozen, his usual confidence replaced by an almost unbearable vulnerability. Finally he spoke. "I don't know," he admitted. "I wish I did. I wish I could tell you that everything we're doing is worth every sacrifice, but the truth is, I don't think anyone really knows until it's too late." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some people nodded, others shook their heads, but everyone was clearly affected. Then, unexpectedly, the little girl who had started it all stood up again. This time, she didn't look shy. She walked back to the microphone, her small frame radiating a quiet strength. "My daddy works a lot too," she said, looking directly at Elon. "He says he wants to give us a better life, but sometimes I just want him to play with me." Her simple statement cut through the tension like a knife. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Even Elon blinked rapidly, visibly struggling to keep his composure. "That's why I asked you that question," the girl continued, "because if money can't buy happiness, then why does everyone work so hard for it?" Elon knelt down on the stage, bringing himself closer to her level. "You're asking the most important questions," he said softly. "Questions I don't have easy answers to. But maybe the answer isn't about money or happiness. Maybe it's about balance, about finding a way to chase big dreams without losing sight of the people who matter most." The little girl thought about this for a moment, then nodded. "Okay," she said simply, before stepping away from the mic again. As she returned to her seat, the entire room erupted into applause. Not the polite clapping you'd expect at a conference, but a thunderous standing ovation that went on for minutes. People cheered, cried, and hugged each other, like they'd all shared something profound. As the applause finally began to die down, Elon stepped back to the microphone, one last time. His face was still flushed, his voice quieter than before but filled with resolve. This conversation isn't over, he said firmly. In fact, it's just beginning. Tomorrow morning, I'm calling a meeting with every leader in my companies. We're going to talk about how we can do better for our employees, for their families, and for ourselves. The crowd murmured in approval, but Elon wasn't finished. And there's something else, he added, glancing toward the little girl who had started it all. I think it's time we asked more questions like hers, not just here but everywhere, because if we don't stop to ask what truly matters, we might lose sight of why we're doing any of this in the first place. With that, he turned and walked off the stage, leaving behind a room full of people buzzing with emotion and reflection. But as the lights dimmed and the audience slowly dispersed, one question lingered in everyone's mind. Would Elon Musk really follow through on his promise, or would the pressures of running billion-dollar companies pull him back into old habits? If you want to know what happened next, if Elon kept his word, or if this moment sparked real change, you'll have to stay tuned for the sequel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single update.